How Sir Richard paid Robin Hood. Greet well your abbot, said Robin, and your prior I you pray, and bid him send me such a monk to dinner every day. Spring came round again, and with it the day on which Sir Richard of Legh was to pay back to Robin Hood the 400 pounds which had so narrowly saved his lands from the Abbot of St. Mary's. By living quietly at home and saving most of his rents, Sir Richard was able to set off at the appointed time not only with the 400 pounds in his pouch, but accompanied by a troop of his own men who carried as presents for Robin 100 good yew bows and as many sheaves of arrows with shining metal points and peacock feathers below the deep notches for the string. As Sir Richard and his followers hastened along the road into Barnesdale, they came to a bridge over the river where many of the people living nearby were met that day for a wrestling match. The prize was a white horse richly harnessed, a pair of gloves, a gold ring, and a pipe of wine. And just as Sir Richard arrived, a tremendous uproar began round the ring where the wrestling was taking place. Pushing through the crowd, he asked what was wrong and discovered that the favorite champion of the whole neighborhood had just been thrown by an unknown yeoman who had appeared suddenly that day and entered for the wrestling. But is not the contest open to all comers? Asked Sir Richard. It is so indeed, answered the onlooker, whom he was questioning. But the men of Barnesdale be jealous of an outsider like this Arthur à Bland, and I fear they will beat him and throw him into the river rather than let him carry off the prize. This shame must not be, exclaimed Sir Richard, and followed by his men he pushed his way to the center of the crowd and struck up the cudgels which were raised to fell Arthur à Bland. Sir Richard spoke to the gathering for some time, and the truth of his words, backed by the sight of his armed followers, brought them to their senses, and the prize was given to Arthur à Bland, the true winner. Sir Richard then bought the wine from him for 5 marks and presented it to the crowd, who cheered him heartily and began to drink to health and the health of Arthur à Bland too, as if they had never thought of cracking his skull or throwing him into the river. But all this had taken some time, and hasten as he might, it was long past noon when Sir Richard came to the meeting place. Meanwhile, Robin and his men waited in vain for the coming of Sir Richard. Let us go to dinner, said Little John at length. Not so, answered Robin. I fear that Our Lady is wrath with me, since she has not sent me my pay. Have no doubts, master, cried Little John. It is scarcely noon. Be sure that before the sun is down, all will come right. I dare be sworn Sir Richard of Legh is true and trustworthy. Then take your bows, said Robin, you and Much and Scarlet, and hasten to the great north road. And if the knight you cannot find, maybe you will meet with another guest to stand proxy for him. Off went the 3 merry men, clad all in Lincoln green, with swords at their sides and bows in their hands, but never a sign of Sir Richard could they find. Presently, however, as they lay in wait behind the bushes, they saw 2 monks, dressed in long black robes and riding on white palfreys, with a large band of serving men and attendants behind them. Then said Little John to Much with a broad grin, I'll wager my life these monks have brought our pay, so cheer up, loosen your swords in their scabbards, set arrows to your strings, and follow me. The monks have 20 or more followers, I know, but I dare not return to Robin without his expected guests. So saying, Little John sprang out into the road, followed by Much and Scarlet, leveled an arrow at the face of the leading monk, and exclaimed, Stay, churlish monk, and go no further. 1 more step, and you die. My arrow is aimed to strike an inch below your hat band, so come along with me. My master is furious at being kept so long for his dinner. Who is your master? Asked the monk, amazed by this sudden summons. Who else but bold Robin Hood, answered Little John. He is a strong thief, quavered the monk, pale with fear. I have heard little good of him. You lie, cried Little John, and you shall rue it. He is a good yeoman of the forest, and he bids you to dinner with him. What if we refuse? Asked the monk. Then I loose mine arrow, replied Little John calmly. But my men will cut you down, all 3 of you, hesitated the monk. I have 100 bowmen hidden in the bushes on either side of the road, declared Little John unblushingly. I have but to raise my hand or cry an order, and every man here lies dead with an arrow in his heart. When they heard this, there was panic amongst the followers and attendants, and when Little John made as though to raise his hand, they turned with one accord and fled for their lives, leaving the 2 monks on their horses, too petrified to move. We are well rid of them, laughed Little John, since there are but 3 of us. Now then, you Much and you Scarlet, lead our guests' horses by their bridles, while I walk behind with an arrow on the string in case of accidents. So they brought the two monks into Barnesdale, where Robin was waiting for them, and Robin greeted them courteously. "These are churlish guests," protested Little John, "and their followers were but cowards. 40 of them at least there were, and all ran away when they saw me bend my bow." "Well, summon our men to dinner," laughed Robin, "and let us make our guests as welcome as we can." "This is an outrage," protested the first monk. "I am the abbot of St. Mary's High Cellarer, and this reverend monk is my clerk." "High Cellarer, ha ha," said Robin. "Then your duty is to supply the abbey with provisions and wine, and also to collect tithes, both in kind and money. Maybe Our Lady has sent me my pay after all, by the hands of this her servant. But to dinner first. Little John, fill a horn of the best wine for Master Cellarer, who doubtless is an expert on vintages, and let him drink to me." With a very bad grace, the cellarer and his clerk drank the wine and made some pretense at eating. "Well now," said Robin presently, "if you have indeed brought me my money, Master Cellarer, I pray you let me see it, and if you are ever in need, maybe I can do as much for you." "I know nothing of any money's owing to you," cried the cellarer anxiously, "and I have no money with me." "None at all?" queried Robin. "But 20 shillings, declared the cellarer. "I swear it before God, 20 shillings for my journey, and no more." "Alas, poor man," said Robin sympathetically, "if that is indeed all you have, I'll give you as much again to help you on your way. Little John, search the saddlebags of these reverend gentlemen, and search them also, in case they may have forgotten an odd shilling or two." The cellarer grew pale with fear, and his clerk began to blubber and mutter prayers, while Little John spread a cloak on the ground, and after a little search began heaping piles of shining gold and silver on it. £800, he declared at length. "That is of gold alone, and yonder heap of silver will come to quite a few pounds over that sum." "Then Our Lady has sent me the money which I had lent to pay the abbot," said Robin, "and by the mass she pays good interest. Fill up Master Cellarer's cup, and his clerk's cup also. But tell me, sirs, whither were you going?" "To seek his Royal Highness Prince John," answered the cellarer. "The money was for him, and cruel indeed will be the interest he will extort from you if you dare to touch a penny of it. I took with me also a message from the Lord Abbot about taking steps to humble the treasonable pride of a certain Sir Richard of Legh, who is a lawbreaker that defies Holy Church in the person of the said abbot." "The said knight," quoth Robin, mimicking the pompous tones of the frightened cellarer, "is a good friend to me, and the said Prince John a traitor to his brother, our good King Richard. The gold was intended for the royal coffers, was it, Master Cellarer?" "Yes, indeed it was." "Then we will keep it for King Richard, and as for the silver, that we will keep in payment for the good food and wine our guests have partaken of while with us." "Alas, that ever we came into this place," lamented the cellarer. "How much cheaper our dinner would have been in Blythe or Doncaster." "Go now back to York," said Robin sternly. "Greet your abbot from me. Tell him to beware how he oppresses Sir Richard of Legh any further, and bid him send me such a guest as yourself to dinner every day." Scarcely had the cellarer and his clerk ridden away, lamenting the loss of their money and threatening dire revenges on Robin Hood and his men, when Sir Richard of Legh came riding hastily to the meeting place with his little troop behind him. "Greetings to you, good Sir Knight," cried Robin gaily. "But what brings you here into Barnesdale? No ill, I hope. Surely the Abbot of St. Mary's has not taken your house and lands from you in spite of all." "By God's good grace and your kindness," answered Sir Richard gravely, "my house and lands are mine once more, free from all debt, mortgage, or other encumbrance. But I pray you forgive me that I am late at the tryst. On the way I came upon a wrestling, where a good yeoman called Arthur of Bland was like to have suffered wrong and ill usage had I not stopped to help him." "Forgive," cried Robin. "Rather I thank you from my heart for what you did. Any man who stays to help a good yeoman earns my friendship forever." "I thank you," said Sir Richard. "But now take this money which I owe you, the £400 that saved my estate, and with it this £20 more by way of interest." "But, my good friend," said Robin very seriously, "you owe me no money. It has already been paid. Our Lady, by the hands of the cellarer of St. Mary's, paid the full 400 pounds scarce an hour since, and a good 400 more by way of interest. And if I took it twice, I were shamed forever. But truly, gentle knight, you yourself are more welcome than any money could be. Sir Richard hardly knew what to say or think at this, but Robin Hood soon told him of what had happened, and they laughed together heartily over it. But on my honor, said Sir Richard at length, here is the money I owe you. Use it well, answered Robin. Buy a good horse and good armor in case you have need to fight for our noble King Richard, or to defend any other good yeoman, or to defend yourself. I fear much lest the Abbot or Prince John accuse you of being in league with me in this matter of lightening Master Cellarer's purse, and do you some ill deed. You certainly stand in great danger, answered Sir Richard, and both the abbot and the sheriff will be out after you for this. Therefore, accept these small gifts I have brought with me for you, 100 good yew bows, cut and seasoned on my estate at Legh, and 100 sheaves of arrows, true and straight and well feathered. I accept them gladly, said Robin. As you say, we may need them soon, but come now, noon is not so long past, but that a good stoup of wine would come amiss, and tonight we will feast you right royally.